who belong to the African Indigenous Governors Council, and I suppose I'll be allowed to thank the first speaker a while ago, who underlined the great humanitarian Schweitzer. I think he worked in Gabon somewhere, who said that among the things that he thought then were important for humanity's harmony was to respect indigenous cultural values. We appreciate technology. We appreciate scientific advancement, but it can't be done in isolation of the ancient wisdom, indigenous knowledge. So the first of the two people that know Dr. Shuttleworth's labor, and I'm using this word labor this time in the creation of the arrival of human beings on earth. Our mothers, those who labor. That's the labor meaning I'm trying to put through here. And King Robinson Tiny sent the following message, and I'm not going to take two paragraphs. He sent this to Dr. Shuttleworth. I have been particularly attracted to you and to Youth for Human Rights International's work for two main reasons. First, your profound conviction that education is the path to creating the new person the world needs. The second paragraph. As a monarch, that's King Tiny speaking, father, and above all, leader of my society, reflecting on the vision and mission you have for Youth for Human Rights, leaves me assured that my own dreams aren't a pie in the sky. We are aspiring for a better society and a more sober world that we together want to leave behind us. Wishing you many more years of this grand service to humanity through youth, as Youth for Human Rights rises to even greater heights of visibility. That was the message King Tiny sent to Dr. Mary Shuttleworth for what she has offered humanity over the last 25 years. The second king is King Raphael Otayo, Human Cultural Heritage, Uganda. He wrote the following message, which we want you to hear on their behalf. I convey my loving greetings to you and Youth for Human Rights International. I appreciate loving commitment towards promotion, preservation, and educating of people all over the world about human rights. Without observation of human rights throughout the world will cease to exist. Human life will be history. Creation will be no more. Please, may you accept my encouragement to you and your organization to continue preaching about human rights to all nations throughout the world. I wish you very good health, energy, wisdom, and may the Almighty God answer all your prayers. King Otayo Raphael of the Human Cultural Community. Now, kindly hear my small message as a friend and ally and a fellow laborer who has worked and walked with Mary, my sister, for the last 16 years. Distinguished fellow members of the human family, I said all protocol observed, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate Youth for Human Rights 25th year legacy. This is an invitation for us to go on a walk down memory lane and discover the origins, the education for peace concept originated. Our forebears, a century ago, in 1925, in a form of civil society of men and women, met in Geneva like we are here today. And what they called, what the ideas of that thing initiated was later to be called the International Bureau of Education. The League of Nations, the predecessor of the United Nations, adopted the NGO's idea and turned it into the intergovernmental organization to promote international cooperation through education and science. It was this seed that the United Nations 1946 sold and named UNESCO. And that seed had a constitution. 80 years ago, the amazing foresighted authors of the UNESCO Constitution, in its preamble, said these things in writing. First, that the wide diffusion of culture and the education of humanity to justice and liberty and peace are indispensable to the dignity of man and constitute a sacred duty which all nations must fulfill in a spirit of mutual assistance and concern. They said another thing. They said, since wars begin in the mind of humans, it's in the minds of humans that the defense of peace must be constructed. They didn't stop there. They said this also. I'm a rumor monger. A peace based exclusively upon the political and economic arrangements of governments would not be a peace which could secure the unanimous, lasting, and sincere support of the people of the world. And that peace must therefore be founded, if it's to do so, if it's not to fail, on intellectual and moral solidarity of mankind. Youth for Human Rights International, under Mary Shuttleworth's shining leadership and relentless efforts across the globe, has, over the past quarter of a century, focused on education, educating the youth of the world about the United Nations 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Mary and millions of youth, as well as those of us who support this project, follow her huge intellectual and physical endeavors. And in this way, we are the blossoming, we are the flower and the fruit of the seed we spoke about. On a personal level, it was a unique opportunity and privilege that on retiring from the United Nations service in the human rights system in 2010, Dr. Shuttleworth's and my trajectories cross. Since then, we have together labored, dreamt, and treated human rights as a basis for peace in the world and between peoples and nations. This is a shared mission. I pledge to continue supporting Mary in to pursue all my life, for the rest of my life, the implementation of what our forebears left us as wisdom, and we've tended to abandon and invest in different things. Permit me, as I conclude, to say a special word about His Excellency Dr. Rancher, who was my High Commissioner in 2003, when the Office High Commissioner took me from Geneva and sent me to Africa, to South Africa, precisely for the SADC region of that continent. I'm very attached to Africa because I have confessed it to you, fellow members of the human family. And it's just a strange thing that my friends who spoke before me also touched on Central Africa. I spent 2 years in Gabon in my earlier service as a diplomat, a head of mission under the governance of Mr. Idi Amin Dada. And these are heavy things to say, but we've got to learn from our experience. That is the nervous system, that when a baby screams and touches a hot cup of tea and it burns it, it learns not to mess around with hot things. Yeah. And therefore, allow me to conclude by wishing my dearest sister, I said my sister was born in Africa. And I said we are one human family. It is a privilege and an honor to be asked to stand in front of you and be able to say, my very dear sister, Mary, you are an invaluable piece of creation.
Isn't that pleasure? It is. Now I'd like to welcome Congresswoman Brisa Ireri Arroyo Martinez, member of the State Congress of Michoacán, to the stage.
Nacionales en México. Es un honor estar aquí, en este espacio donde las voces del mundo se unen para defender la dignidad, para construir paz y recordarnos que lo importante es nunca perder la esperanza. Quiero iniciar reconociendo a una mujer cuya visión ha transformado generaciones, la doctora Mary Shuttleworth. Su labor educativa a través de las décadas ha logrado de los derechos humanos una realidad viva, cercana y comprensible para millones de jóvenes en más de 150 países. Celebrar hoy este aniversario de Youth for Human Rights International es celebrar un cuarto de siglo de luz, de conciencia, de reconocer buenas acciones. Doctora to the world. Gracias por recordarnos que la educación para la paz es uno de los puentes más sólidos hacia la libertad. Muchas gracias. Es profundamente aleccionador encontrarnos hoy en este foro internacional, donde seguramente el intercambio de experiencias, ideas y aprendizajes enriquecerá nuestro universo de acciones para transformar en la medida de nuestras posibilidades el mundo que nos toca vivir. Para quienes estamos aquí presentes, sin importar nuestro origen o nuestra nacionalidad, hablar de derechos humanos es hablar de un tema siempre vigente, pero también complejo, porque en él convergen distintas realidades, culturas y perspectivas. Y hay algo que debe quedar siempre claro. En los derechos humanos no existen jerarquías. Todas las personas tienen derecho a disfrutarlos sin discriminación alguna, sin importar su origen, color de piel, género, edad, idioma, religión, condición social o cualquier otra circunstancia. Es decir, los derechos humanos, con el concepto más actualizado, son indivisibles. Conociendo mínimamente el marco de referencia de este tema tan importante en nuestra sociedad, muchos de ustedes se preguntarán qué pasa con los derechos humanos en México, en mi país. Para nadie es desconocido que en algunos aspectos de los derechos humanos existen aún grandes retos para cumplirle más cabalmente a la sociedad mexicana. Yo vengo de Michoacán, una tierra que me ha enseñado que los derechos humanos no se defienden solamente desde las leyes, se defienden también desde el corazón de la comunidad. Como legisladora, me preocupa y me ocupa que vivamos en un verdadero Estado de Derecho, apegado a nuestra Constitución y a los principios que reconocen la dignidad de todas las personas. Por eso estoy aquí, para compartir con ustedes una parte de la experiencia que estamos construyendo desde mi estado y al mismo tiempo para escuchar y aprender de otras experiencias del mundo. Porque estoy convencida de algo. Defender los derechos humanos también significa prevenir las condiciones que generan violencia, exclusión y desigualdad. Mi trabajo legislativo y social se ha enfocado en rescatar valores, en fortalecer la convivencia en comunidad y abrir caminos reales para que niñas, niños, jóvenes y familias enteras encuentren alternativas frente a los desafíos que enfrentan. Uno de los proyectos que quiero hoy compartirles es la red de apoyo. Este proyecto nació de una convicción profunda cuando enseñamos a las nuevas generaciones a reconocer su valor, a cuidar su entorno y a respetar la vida, estamos sembrando paz. La red de apoyo está cobijada solo por participación ciudadana, sin distinción de partidos políticos. Nuestro objetivo es fomentar comunidades de paz y desarrollo en las zonas más olvidadas de la ciudad de Morelia principalmente, capital del estado de Michoacán. Esta red de apoyo funciona junto con el programa social Ayudando en Serio y con los días comunitarios. Estamos llegando a donde nadie más va. Con esta misión nació Guardianes del Corazón de Morelia, un proyecto que busca formar líderes comunitarios desde la infancia y fortalecer así sus capacidades con valores como la empatía, la responsabilidad social y la solidaridad. Porque hemos aprendido que la prevención no debe quedar solo en discurso. La prevención es una de las herramientas más poderosas para proteger los derechos humanos. También hemos impulsado programas educativos que atienden las causas de la violencia. Con ello, le hablamos a mamás, le hablamos a papás, porque ante los riesgos que enfrentan nuestros jóvenes, no basta con decirles lo que no deben hacer. Tenemos que ofrecerles alternativas. Soy una convencida que en lugar de que encuentren falsas salidas en drogas o en violencia, debemos acercarles soluciones verdaderas, como el deporte, la música, la educación, el trabajo digno, una familia y una comunidad que les acompañen y les respalden también. Cada una de estas oportunidades representa en sí misma el ejercicio de un derecho humano. Porque cuando un joven conoce su valor, ejerce sus derechos y encuentra un propósito, también encuentra razones para alejarse de la violencia. Los informes y recomendaciones derivados del examen periódico universal de las Naciones Unidas nos recuerdan que México todavía enfrenta importantes desafíos en materia de derechos humanos. Entonces, la pregunta es, ¿qué podemos hacer? Primero, atender las causas de la violencia para prevenir la delincuencia. Dar continuidad y fortalecer los programas sociales y educativos que han demostrado resultados. Fortalecer la responsabilidad de quienes tienen la tarea de procurar e impartir justicia. Aceptar la realidad que vivimos, pero nunca resignarnos a ella. Debemos impedir que los problemas se agudicen, evitar que las nuevas generaciones crezcan en contextos donde se normalice la violencia. Y sobre todo, debemos hacer a un lado la indiferencia. La solidaridad también es una forma de defender los derechos humanos. La promoción de la paz no es tarea de un solo sector, es una obra conjunta entre sociedad y gobierno. Cuando caminamos de la mano, compartiendo sabiduría, recursos y voluntad, podemos transformar comunidades enteras. Y soy testigo de ello. He aprendido que cuando un servidor público escucha, aprende y trabaja junto a la gente y pone el centro de toda decisión a las personas, los resultados se comienzan a reflejar. Por eso mi mensaje hoy es profundamente convencida que la paz se construye día a día. Se construye con educación, se construye con prevención, se construye con oportunidades reales, se construye cuando dejamos de ser indiferentes y sobre todo se construye cuando entendemos que cada persona, sin importar su origen, tiene derecho a vivir con dignidad, con libertad y con esperanza. Hoy quiero invitar a las autoridades, a todas las organizaciones, a educadores, a jóvenes y líderes aquí presentes, a mirar hacia las soluciones que ya están funcionando, a compartirlas, a replicarlas, a adaptarlas a nuestras propias comunidades, porque ahí, donde se fortalecen los valores, nacen las grandes oportunidades. Es ahí donde existen oportunidades y se pueden reconstruir vidas. Y es ahí donde se reconstruyen vidas que la paz y la libertad se vuelven posibles. Ha sido para mí una enorme satisfacción y una muy grata experiencia ser partícipe de este foro internacional. Me llevo sin duda aprendizajes, pero también una convicción aún más fuerte. Los derechos humanos no solo se proclaman, se enseñan,
housekeeping notes. If you wouldn't mind making sure any of your cell phones, your iPads, if you have pager, make sure those are please silent so that we can keep our full attention on our incredible speakers. One other note of housekeeping, for any languages that are not English or Spanish, the translation will be done in English. So just a note, if we have any more Italian, French, Portuguese speakers, it will be done in English translation. All right, and next up, Ambassador Salah Mohammed, Ambassador Salah Hamad is unfortunately unable to be with us today, and he has asked his colleague, Ms. Pusaletso Adelina Morato, to read his presentation. So please welcome her to the stage.
Distinguished delegates, I represent Dr. Salah Hamad, as our moderator has indicated. I would submit his apology and greetings. On behalf of the African Union, Excellencies, esteemed members of the diplomatic corps, our esteemed missions, courageous human rights defenders, and youth leaders from every corner of this global village, dear colleagues and friends, good morning and greetings. It is a profound honor to stand before you today at the 20th International Human Rights Summit. We gather at a critical moment in human history. We are met under a theme that is both an ancient mandate and our only path forward: global youth solidarity for peace and development. I extend my deepest gratitude to the organizers, Dr. Mary Shuttleworth, the Executive Director of Youth for Human Rights International. I take this opportunity to congratulate the 25 years of hard work, commitment, and resilience. Many thanks to our civil society partners and every delegate present here today. Your presence proves that borders cannot define a shared human conscience. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we do not meet today in a vacuum of peace. We meet in a world fractured by escalating geopolitical tensions, systemic inequalities, and the devastating impacts of climate change. From the front lines of armed conflicts to communities silent by authoritarian regimes, human rights are under siege. The reality: economic instability threatens the survival of millions. The toll: education is disrupted by war and poverty. The threat: the basic right to live in safety is denied to the most vulnerable. For too long, young people have been treated merely as passive victims of these crises. Or worse, we are dismissed as a demographic to be managed. Today, we reject that narrative. We are not just onlookers to history. We are the architects of a new world order. Distinguished delegates, dear friends, our theme reminds us of an unshakable truth: peace, development, and human rights are inseparable. They are three pillars of the same structure. No peace without rights. True peace is not just the absence of war. It is the presence of justice, equality, and human dignity. No development without peace. Sustainable development cannot take root in fertile soil if that soil is scorched by conflict. Dear colleagues, when we defend a child's right to good quality education, we block the path to radicalization. When we fight for economic justice and fair wages, we dismantle the desperation that fuels conflict. When we champion climate action, we secure the resource base for future peace. To protect human rights is to build peace. To build peace is to guarantee sustainable development. Excellencies, what does solidarity mean in 2026? It must be more than a trending hashtag. It must move past comfortable rhetoric. Solidarity means recognizing that an injustice suffered by a young person in one hemisphere is a direct threat to the freedom of a young person in another. It demands that youth in stable nations use their safety to amplify the voices of youth in conflict zones. It requires us to cross divides of race, religion, nationality, and ideology to form a unified front against tyranny and oppression. Our generation possesses a historic advantage. We are the most interconnected generation the world has ever seen. Our power, we use digital technology to bypass traditional gatekeepers. Our reach, we share grassroots strategies across oceans in seconds. Our beauty, our power, our voice, we must weaponize this connectivity for empathy, accountability, and sustained positive change. Ladies and gentlemen, we must realize that solidarity without action is empty. We should transform our shared convictions into tangible development. We must demand a seat at the table where policies written and budgets are allocated. We are tired of being invited to the table simply to satisfy a youth quota. We do not want to be a checkbox on an institutional agenda. We demand co-leadership, inclusive, meaningful leadership, constructive engagement, and genuine partnership. We must build our own table. This looks like grassroots work, launching community-led peace-building initiatives, innovation, developing sustainable technologies to combat local climate threats, accountability, establishing watchdogs to monitor human rights violations. We must support each other's projects, share resources, and build a global ecosystem of youth-led solutions. We are not the leaders of tomorrow. Tomorrow is a luxury we cannot afford. The future is now. It is in our hands. We are the absolute necessity of today. Excellencies, as we engage in this 20th conference, let us make a pact. Let us refuse to let this be just another gathering of unified speeches and forgotten resolutions. Let this conference be the birthplace of new coalitions. Let us connect our organizations across borders. Let us pledge to defend the rights of the marginalized fiercely. Let us prove that global youth solidarity can break down structural oppression. When you return to your respective nations, carry the fire of this movement with you. Stand firm against complacency. Challenge the status quo in our communities, parliaments, and in your international institutions. Distinguished delegates, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, the path to lasting peace and development is long and steep. It is paved with institutional resistance and systemic barriers. But look around this way. Look at the courage, the intellect, and the fierce determination represented here today. There is no force on earth more powerful than a generation unified by a shared vision for human dignity. Let us stand together. Let us fight together. Let us build a future where peace is permanent, development is equitable, and human rights belong to us all. I thank you all for your attention.
Let us now welcome Cesar Alexander Acuña, presenting for the Universidad Cesar Vallejo.
First of all, I want to thank Dr. Mary Sherwood for all amazing job in quarter century working for this board. For me, it's an honor to be here and part of a second generation legacy of the biggest school in Peru, where the Universidad Cesar Vallejo. We go in our class with 250,000 students, and my father, who is the founder, had the vision that we need a social university. And he's working, and we're working now for almost 40 years in education, trying to make this voice of human rights, the education, as the biggest human right we have in humanity. Right now, we think, and we are very happy to be and conclude that humanity needs new opportunities to face the challenge. We are at a very challenging time. We're seeing social media, AI era, and we are facing as community many challenges. And this space, this community, this way to express ourselves as a voice of people to think and wish a better humanity, a better society, a better world for all of us. So I want to thank to all these people, those beautiful people that want to change this mindset of new generation. Because we know that right now we're living through one of the greatest transformations times in our history. For the first time, knowledge is no longer limited to geography, wealth, or social status. Artificial intelligence has the potential to become the greatest equalizer and humanity has ever created, but only if we ensure that access to knowledge becomes a universal human right. Today, millions of children still lack of quality education. Millions of adults remain excluded from the opportunity of digital age, and misinformation is spread faster than truth. The challenge before us is not technology itself. The challenge is whether technology will divide humanity or empower. I believe in a different future, a future where every child, regardless of where they come from, or has ever access to more education. And we're working through that, and we're happy to be part of this community as well. As a future and a leader of this part of the community, I believe that a future where I expand human potential instead of placing human purpose. A future where knowledge becomes the foundation of freedom, dignity, opportunity, and peace. We're entering a new era, not the industrial era, not the information era, but the era of knowledge. But this requires a mission, democratize education. And we need to do that every day, and we have to focus on that as a society. Make AI ethical, transparent, and inclusive for everybody. Build societies where learning needs to be the center of every community. The United Nations has no longer threatened the fundamental right of humanity. Today, we must recognize that meaningful access to knowledge and digital opportunities becoming essential to exercising many other rights in practice. The UN has recently emphasized human rights to digital sphere, civic participation, and equitable access to opportunity. The true power of our nations and of our communities is not measured by natural resources, it's measured by the mindsets that it develops and the power of the way that people think. Our really, the biggest resource on our board is our own people, and the way we are really equal for everybody access for education. Let us create a world where every person has the power to think, to learn, to innovate, and contribute to the society, and all this community. Because when we give people the knowledge, we give the freedom to think, and the freedom to be, and to think for all the world. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to introduce Eleonora Frigiero, presenting on behalf of Laura Greggio, International Criminal Bar Association.
Good morning. Dear Madame Shuttleworth, dear Youth for Human Rights, family, thank you. The rights of short people too. So, dear young delegates, distinguished colleagues, and esteemed excellencies, it is a true honor to send you my warmest congratulations on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of Youth for Human Rights International. For 25 years, Youth for Human Rights has demonstrated that educating young people about human rights is not simply about teaching legal principles. It is about nurturing compassion, responsibility, courage, and hope. This remarkable milestone celebrates not only an organization, but also thousands of young people across the world who have chosen to believe that human dignity is worth defending every single day. First, allow me to express a special word of appreciation to Mary Shuttleworth. Mary, it has been a privilege to know you and to witness your extraordinary dedication to the promotion of human rights. Your determination has always been accompanied by something equally powerful, your kindness. Throughout the years, I have admired not only your unwavering commitment, but also the genuine smile you offer to everyone you meet. Leadership is often measured by achievements, but I believe it is equally measured by the humanity you show to others. You embody both. To all young participants, I would like to share with you some thoughts. We live in a time when the world sometimes seems to have lost its direction, a time in which peace appears fragile, certainty is increasingly rare, emotions are often mediated through social media and artificial intelligence. Communication is becoming faster, but not necessarily deeper. And technology often dictates the rhythm of our lives more than our humanity does. We are constantly connected, yet too often we have less time to truly listen, to reflect, to understand one another, and to simply be present. In such a world, I would ask you to remember 3 words. Be courageous, be hopeful, be human. Be courageous because believing in human rights and in the possibility of change requires courage. Never allow cynicism to convince you that your voice cannot make a difference. Every great transformation in history began with someone who believed that a better future was possible. Be hopeful, because hope is not naive optimism. Hope is a choice. It is the conviction that our actions matter and that each of us has the capacity to improve the life of others. The future is not something that simply happens to us. It is something that we build together day after day. And above all, be human. Always offer others understanding before judgment, dialogue before division, compassion before indifference. Never forget that in a world increasingly shaped by technology, it will never be artificial intelligence that changes humanity. It will always be human intelligence guided by empathy, kindness, and respect. Your humanity will always be your greatest strength. Never stop being the change you are already creating today. And never forget that becoming an adult should never mean giving up the ability to dream. Children imagine a world without limits. Adults too often learn to accept limits without imagining new possibilities. Keep alive that sense of wonder, that purity of purpose, and that courage to dream. Protect it, because it is one of the greatest gifts you possess. I truly wish I could be with you in person to share these words with you, and above all, to have the opportunity to meet each one of you individually. Unfortunately, due to family reasons, I was not able to join you in this occasion. Nevertheless, I will do in spirit, and I hope that these words can convey the affection, admiration, and gratitude I feel for all that you are doing. I still remember the privilege of being with many of you years ago at the forum in New York. I remember your faces, your enthusiasm, your generosity, and your sincere desire to make the world a better place. Those memories have remained with me ever since. Whenever my own work has become difficult, I have often thought back to your energy and your optimism. For this, I want to say to you all young members of the Youth for Human Rights family, thank you. Thank you for the enthusiasm you bring into our work. Thank you for reminding those of us who are a little older why we chose this path in the first place. Your commitment renews our own. We need one another. You need our experience, and we need your vision. You need our guidance. And we need your courage to challenge all ways of thinking. Together, across generations, we can build something far stronger than either generation could achieve alone. You are not only young human rights advocates, you are young ambassadors of peace. My hope is that we, as the older generation, will always do everything possible to ensure that your voices are heard, that your ideas are respected, and that you are given the opportunity to become true protagonists of change. May we help create a world that is better than the Congratulations once again on this extraordinary anniversary. May the 25 next years be marked by even stronger dialogue, deeper humanity, and an unwavering commitment to the dignity and rights of every person. With my deepest admiration and warmest wishes, Laura Blanche.
And now, please enjoy a special video address from Sheena Choen, actor and ambassador for Youth for Human Rights Foundation. Thought we were getting a little glow in the dark moment there. I think it's pretty fitting that after an address that talks about, the perils of technology and how important it is to be empathetic and prioritize human connection, we then do have some technological issues. So thank you, Eleonora, for making that transition so perfect for us.
Hi, I'm Sheena Choen, and I've been South Asia Ambassador of the United Nations Human Rights over the last year.
Okay, I think we're going to have to come back to that because I know we definitely all want to hear from Sheena there. All right, next up, I'm very privileged to get to introduce our next batch of youth delegates. Is everyone excited to hear a little voice from the youth today?
Yeah.
I know I am. So without further ado, it is my privilege to welcome our youth delegate from Uzbekistan to the stage.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and honored guests. I'm Erkaboy. I came from Desde, where 2/3 of my nation is underserved. I chair our Youth Parliament's Committee on Youth Legal Literacy. Since 2021, I've stood in classrooms across my country asking one question: do you know your rights? Sometimes, too often, the answer was silence. That silence is why I do this work. A young person who knows their rights can defend them. A society that teaches right can protect them. So we thought we trained thousands of people in legal literacy. We carried youth voices into draft legislation, and I have watched my generation move from passive observers to active participants in the law that govern their lives. I've also watched my country transform. Uzbekistan eradicated the systemic forced labor in our cotton fields that once drew the world's condemnation. National poverty fell from 23% to under 7%. Child poverty was cut in half in 3 years. And our commitment does not stop our borders. Through the Terrorist Hub, more than 42,000 tons of food have reached our neighbors in Afghanistan. I share these facts honestly. Our journey is not complete. Challenges still remain. But I no longer believe change is something young people wait for. It is something we legislate, teach, and build. Youth are not only leaders of tomorrow, we are partners today. That's why I came here to be your partner. Dear delegates, come on, let's become partners starting today for our human rights, for human dignity, for education, for saving our planet. Thank you.
Agreed. Next up, we have from Costa Rica, our next student delegate.
Good afternoon to everyone, Your Excellencies, honored dignitaries, and friends. My name is Santiago Vargas, and I come from Costa Rica, a country with no army. More than 70 years ago, Costa Rica traded weapons for pensions and military barracks for schools. I was born in the proof that peace is not a dream, it is a decision. From the same pacifist vision came Oscar Arias Sanchez, who believed so deeply in peace that he carried across Central America and earned a Nobel Peace Prize. Today, our commitment has the force of love. Love 10,000 third. Incorporate the teaching of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into our national curriculum. In Costa Rica, every child now learns their rights in school. But laws do not teach, people do. Through Youth for Human Rights Costa Rica, I work alongside our chapter's president, Raúl Vargas, traveling to schools, companies, and every community around the corner in our country. We are building a peaceful army. Young people trained to defend the human dignity and equal opportunities, armed only with the Universal Declaration. This year, we celebrate 25 years of Youth of Human Rights International and the 20th edition of this summit, a legacy begun by Dr. Mary Shodover, so that human rights would stop being an idea and become a reality around the world. Celebrating this legacy is not looking backwards. It is reaffirming together that education remains the most powerful weapon we have for building peace. I want to do this in name from Costa Rica and our president. We have a special gift for you, Mary Shodover, to recognize your work through these years.
Next up, we have our youth delegate from Jamaica. Please give them a round of applause.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and honored guests. My name is Magenta Blake, and I am a human rights advocate from Jamaica. Now, I became a human rights educator for one simple reason. People cannot protect rights they do not know they have. In South Spring, Montego Bay, a community that knows violence all too well, I facilitated workshops where young people were able to explore the 30 human rights for the very first time. Now, I am an agricultural engineer, I'm not a teacher, so I didn't want the workshops to be lectures. Instead, we role-played, we debated, we had conversations, we took the Universal Declaration off the page and we placed it inside our everyday life. And then something happened that I will never forget. Young people began connecting the human rights to their own experiences. They named injustices that they had been taught to accept as normal. And they asked, how do we get involved? That is the power of human rights education. Knowledge becomes confidence, confidence becomes voice. When people understand their rights, they can stand against discrimination, injustice, and violence. And they can stop passing silence to the next generation. Jamaica, my island, needs its young people. We have to speak up against unfair treatment, promote inclusion, educate others, and lead by example. Every workshop, every conversation, every act of kindness builds the peaceful communities we so desperately need. And I want to close by saying something that a lot of other people have echoed here today. Human rights begins in the small places, the places close to home and at home. I have seen it begin in my own community, and by educating and empowering youth today, we are building a future where dignity, equality, and freedom are respected for all. Thank you.
And now our youth delegate will do our last.
Madam President, Excellencies, and fellow youth, it is a profound honor to speak here at the United Nations headquarters in New York. My name is Jotania Maria da Silva, and I speak today as a young Timorese whose life is shaped by the realities faced by many young people at home. Growing up in Timor-Leste, I witnessed how unequal access to opportunities affects the lives and futures of our youth. I saw friends leave their homes in rural areas to pursue education in the capital. Fellow youth selling food on the streets after school just to pay their tuition. A daily reminder that education often comes at great personal sacrifice. These experiences taught me that human rights are not abstract principles. They are lived realities. With more than 60% of Timor-Leste's population under the age of 25, investing in education is not only a social priority, it is a national obligation. I know this because education changed my own life. Receiving the opportunity to study abroad opened doors that I once only dreamed of. Today, standing here at the United Nations is not only my achievement. It is a reminder of what becomes possible when a young woman is given the chance to learn. But I also recognize that with this privilege comes responsibility to give back to those who are still unable to access the same opportunities, especially young women who continue to face barriers to education because of their circumstances. To this why I have chosen to be involved in youth initiatives and community engagement work, including programs that promote education awareness, youth empowerment, and equal opportunity. Through these efforts, I've worked with young people in Timor-Leste and some Asian countries to encourage confidence, preparation, and belief that their voices and dreams matter. There's a saying I want everyone here to remember. Knowledge becomes meaningful when it is shared, and leadership becomes real when it uplifts others. Excellencies, human rights education gives young people the confidence to understand their rights, speak out against discrimination, and build inclusive and peaceful communities. Hi, I'm inspired by the opportunities that Timor-Leste's membership in ASEAN, together with our engagement in the community of Portuguese-speaking countries, the United Nations, and other multilateral platforms, like your organization, Madam all give applause to her. Which provides for young people to learn from one another, exchange ideas, and work together to build a more peaceful future. In Timor-Leste, we often say, La hija de Kasam, la hija futuro. Without education, there is no future. This simple belief reminds us why investing in education is investing in peace, opportunity, and the next generation. Today, we are fortunate to stand here and speak. Yet billions around the world are still struggling to have access even to basic education. Let us urge our governments to invest in education so every young person can shape a future built in dignity, peace, and shared prosperity. Obrigada, Bar. Thank you very much.
Next, we have our new delegate from Yemen.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. My name is Abdurrahman Balbed, and I am here as a Yemeni, speaking for millions of people whose voices rarely reach rooms like this. In Yemen, a whole generation who grown up in only wars and conflict. Students finish their schools with a limited access to university education. Nurses treat their patients in hospitals without electricity. Families plan their days around water, medicine, and safety. For me, these are not statistics, they're home. That's why I do this work. I co-founded PIMA, Minority Means Value. It's a non-profit organization to help and partner with another corporation and organization, work with over 20 different organizations and help over 100 young people find internships and jobs, and over 500 people in training and education. Also, through the Restore Youth Organization, I represented youth at the United Nations, bringing NGOs, UN agencies, and young leaders at the same table for the youth, peace, and security agenda. Those experiences taught me that human rights start with opportunity. When people have education, healthcare, decent work, and safety, they can build life with dignity. When they lose those things, everything else falls apart. Most people cannot defend a right they never know they have. But when young people learn the right, they learn how to stand for others. When young people are not waiting for permission, we organize, we work across borders, we turn conversation into a project. We have seen it in Yemen, we have seen it in Iraq, and we have seen it in New York. I hope to lead this summit with partnerships who will make a dignity a daily reality for every Yemeni, for every person. Thank you.
Thank you, your delegates, for your commitment to action and for all that you do to make our world a better place. And now it is my honor to welcome Braulio Vargas Núñez, President of Asociación Jóvenes por los Derechos Humanos Costa Rica, who will be moderating today's meeting.
morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, I have the honor of being the fan of education, human rights education, leadership, and the way forward. At the beginning of this universe, there was movement. Time was born. With they came the galaxies, the planets, the suns, and from the suns come all. So, time is on. So, the beginning, let me introduce the first panelist. Is Katsi Tamana from Naciones.
And dear young leaders, good afternoon. It's an honor to return to the International Human Rights Summit organized by YHRI in its 25th anniversary. When I first came to the United Nations headquarters in 2019 as a young lawyer from Bangladesh, I believe that strong laws are the foundation of human rights. Today, after years of serving as an advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, as well as the Assistant Attorney General for Bangladesh, I still believe in the power of law, but I have learned something equally important. Laws protect rights, but education protects people. I have spent most of my professional life in courtrooms where law seeks to resolve disputes, protect rights, and deliver justice. The courtroom is where society responds when rights have already been violated. It is where justice attempts to repair harm. Over the years, however, I have come to realize that while the law is indispensable, it is often the last line of defense. These experiences taught me that access to justice begins long before anyone enters a courtroom. It begins when people understand their rights. It begins when they recognize the dignity of others, and it happens only through education. Education transforms peace from an abstract aspiration into a daily practice. This belief inspired another important chapter of my journey as an educator. As a university lecturer, assistant director, Youth for Human Rights International White Chair in Bangladesh, and now as the regional director for Bangladesh of the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights, USIDHR, I have had the privilege of working with students, teachers, lawyers, and young leaders from diverse backgrounds. And some of the most meaningful moments in my career have not been inside courtrooms. They have been inside classrooms, seminars, and conferences. However, our world today faces enormous challenges. Armed conflict continues to displace millions of people. Gender-based violence remains widespread. Hate speech, discrimination, intolerance, and rapidly evolving digital technologies continue to test our commitment to human dignity. Citizens who recognize that protecting another person's rights ultimately protect their own. To the young leaders gathered here today, I would like to share one simple message. Never underestimate your ability to make a difference. You do not need to be a lawyer to defend the justice. You do not need to be a judge to uphold fairness. Leadership begins whenever you choose compassion over indifference. Peace is not built by extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. It is built by ordinary people making principled choices every day. And education is the bridge that connects human rights, justice, and lasting peace. Because when we educate, we empower. When we empower, we protect human dignity. And when we protect human dignity, we build lasting peace. This is how we educate for peace. Because we are one people living in one planet. Thank you to Dr. Mary, and thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Katsi. Next speaker, Mrs. Staff Sergeant Tanaka.
ciao, aloha, ni hao, konnichiwa, masama, namas, namaste.
Howdy.
We are all one, just different languages. In policing, operational needs and changes are constant. The challenge is creating the time, the space, and support to move human rights into everyday life. Culture change does not happen overnight, and it takes patience and consistency as any type of leader, no matter where you are. Today we speak about leadership and the importance of human rights through education. Education for peace. At its core, this work is grounded in the first principle of human rights. Every person is born free and equal in dignity and rights. We should all be treated the same way. Leadership is not about rank or about a position. The type of leadership is about responsibility, how we treat people, how we respond when someone is struggling, and how we create spaces where people feel safe. At York Regional Police, leadership in social security through education has been brought to the forefront because the work is ultimately about people, both our communities and our members. This education helps us better understand one another, recognize barriers, and make informed decisions. Through our initiatives and the Human Rights Classroom, we share knowledge with members, youth, and communities about significant dates, diverse faiths, countries of origin, ethnic communities, organizations, and events that are relevant to policing and community engagement. Resources such as the Human Rights International booklets and videos are included in our Human Rights Classroom, and they're shared with our communities, our youth, our recruits, at events and for community engagement. These tools help us make human rights education accessible, practical, and meaningful. It helps our communities engage and respond more meaningfully with each other. This year marks the 5th annual Human Rights Day. We will celebrate it within and around our Human Rights Classroom and with our communities. Through this work, human rights education has become more than just a program. It has become part of our policing and our community culture. I want to thank everybody for being here, but also to Deputy Chief Salia, who is here to support me and our policing and community culture today and human rights leadership. I also want to thank Nicole Krellin, Human Rights Canada, and of course Mary Shaw. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Peter Derby.
Bonjour, salut tout le monde. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me just start off by saying that over the last couple of days, I've had the extreme pleasure of meeting some of my fellow panelists. Proud of example, right beside me, Dana Cuff, and on the far side, Josh Cooper. I'm going to tell you, to be honest, I don't know what I'm here, because these guys are intelligent, sharp, they have very high expectations of themselves and others, and so it's a privilege, genuine privilege to join them on this panel. And I should say as well, to be honest, sitting here in the audience listening to these incredible speakers, most especially our youth, who are so capable, so bright, so passionate, so ready to do what they can to improve the lives of people. panel and then submitting my resume to Mary, who thought, hey, this guy is not a troublemaker, he should be. I just want to ask you guys one question really, which is, have you ever wondered who or what has shaped your beliefs about humanity? I've worked in public education for over 28 years, alongside very caring teachers who have fought to give young people a chance every day to be heard, to be seen, and to feel they belong. I also saw the effects of poverty up close. Students and families struggling because of either familial or societal or legal concerns broke, to be honest. And today I'm going to tell you that so many of us in these kinds of systems are failing us. And that includes democracy itself. No matter how hard some of us work, no matter how well we do in school, achieving our dreams feels even more difficult than ever before. Yet there are leaders, right here in New York, who remind us that individuals can create change for the benefit of all. I think of a man like Mohandas Gandhi, who wrote, if we could change ourselves, the tendencies of the world would also change. We need not wait to see what others do. Gandhi showed us that basically lasting change begins with the courage to decolonize our own mind. The man Gandhi became worked very laboriously over years and years to decolonize his mind. And we can use his ideas to help each other as human beings. Colonialism divided humanity through false racial hierarchies, dividing people into superior and inferior classes. And these labels even exist today. They still divide us. Take me. I'm a descendant of people taken from India by the British to the Caribbean plantations almost 200 years ago. I was born in Trinidad and came to Canada at the age of 9. In India, if I go to India, I'm not really considered Indian anymore. If I go back to Trinidad, I'm not really a true Trinidad. And in many parts of Canada, due to color, I'm not really considered a full Canadian. And yet, I'm all of these things. I defy labels, and increasingly, most of us do today. As a teacher and principal, I learned that one crucial tool people lack is an understanding of their own history and how it shapes the present. Those who control media or own media frames when stories matter, and we see how certain stereotypes are perpetuated. Brown people, for example, are expected to serve but not always to lead in one country. Even the word immigrant is often associated with exploitation or some sort of illegality. And yet, we're in countries like Canada and the US, which has one of the highest standards and most stringent and toughest immigration systems in the world. Our schools also privilege certain civilizations. If in school in grade 4 or 6 they say, hey, let's look at ancient civilizations, those students in turn towards certain civilizations first. If we go to certain innovations or certain individuals who created things, the schools and the websites turn to certain individuals first. We need to change that. We need to ensure that more voices matter. What do we do about that? The Canadian Caribbean Indian Cultural Collective, of which I'm a part of and is chaired by a wonderful young man by the name of Varun Kumar, tells the story of Indian people taken by the British as indentured laborers to 19 countries across the world, including Kenya, Malaysia, Fiji, Jamaica, South Africa, and Trinidad. We connect these stories to those of captured Samoans, captured people from the South Pacific Islands, captured Chinese people taken to plantations in the Caribbean, all the way across to other plantations in Australia and Fiji. In other words, we're revealing a shared history of displacement, resilience, and survival. Marcus Garvey said, a people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without leaves. We are helping to build a human family tree here, a future where every person can see themselves in our shared history. That is not an extraordinary goal. It is the minimum every human being deserves for a life of dignity and peace. Thank you all very much.
Our next speaker is Mr. Pratik.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is my profound honor to join distinguished leaders, diplomats, educators,
advocates, and Dr. Mary at the United Nations headquarters as we commemorate 25 years legacy of youth for Human Rights International. This milestone reflects a quarter century of unwavering commitment to advancing human dignity through education, a mission that aligns deeply with my work at the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights, USIDHR, the International Human Rights Council, IHRC USA, and UNIP, UN Canada. Human rights education is the foundation of peaceful and inclusive society. Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights affirms that education must extend respect for human rights, fundamental freedoms. Across my roles in this great institution, I have witnessed how knowledge empowered individuals transform communities and builds resilient nations. When people understand their rights, the rights of others, they become active participants in shaping a more just and harmonious world. For many years, UNHCR has proudly incorporated the educational resource developed by Youth for Human Rights into our rights education program. Using these materials alongside our professional training curricula, we have educated more than 30,000 individuals around the world, including educators, law enforcement officers, healthcare professionals, business leaders, government officials, students, and community advocates. As President of UNIT, UN Canada, and High Commissioner, International Human Rights Council, IRAC USA, my work emphasizes peace building, youth empowerment, and community development. Young people are essential partners in advancing their human rights education. They bring creativity, courage, and a willingness to challenge injustice. The 25-year legacy of Youth for Human Rights International demonstrates the transformative power of youth leadership and their ability to shape more equitable future. Yet, despite progress, challenge, prejudice, discrimination, misinformation, and conflict continue to trade in human dignity. Many communities still lack access of quality human rights education. To move forward, we must expand partnership between government, NGOs, academic institutions, and diplomatic missions. We must integrate human rights education into national curricula, professional training program, and community initiative, ensuring learning is culturally relevant, accessible, and grounded life values. As we look forward the next 25 years, our shared responsibility is clear to strengthen human rights education as a pathway to peace. When individuals understand their rights, they stand tall. When communities embrace human dignity, they grow stronger. And when nations commit to human rights education, they build a future rooted in justice and harmony. I congratulate Dr. Mary and Youth for Human Rights International for their extraordinary leadership and lasting contribution to the global human rights movement. Together, we can ensure that human rights education remains a beacon of hope for generations to come. Thank you.
My name is Karen Wolfer, and I'm with United Religions Initiative. I want to thank the United for Human Rights congratulations, Mary, on 25 remarkable years. This anniversary means something particular to us at URI because this marks our 26th anniversary. And reflecting on it, I keep returning to one thought. Human rights and religious freedom are two threads of the same fabric. Both begin with the same premise, that every person carries inherent dignity, and both depend on the same engine to make that premise real. Ordinary people in ordinary communities choosing to use their influence to promote peace and dignity for all humanity. URI is a global grassroots interfaith network. We work in 120 countries, and we have 14 action areas, from peace building to environmental justice to women's empowerment and human rights. And human rights also is a thread that runs through nearly all these action areas. Because in our experience, rights are rarely won in the abstract. They are won household by household, bus route by bus route, and classroom by classroom. I want to share 3 examples of concrete actions taken by members of our global network to protect and promote human rights. The first is from Eastern Uganda, where our regional office partnered with a local cooperation circle, a Sufi women's organization, and both Muslim and Christian community leaders to train 120 women in property rights. Women who had been denied ownership of their own homes, many after surviving domestic violence. 70 of those women have since started small businesses. 30 girls, once pulled out of school, are back in the classroom, supported by that same growing income. This is what restoration looks like at the level of one person, one household, and one community. The second example moves us from the individual to the institutional. In Sri Lanka, one of our network members partnered together and worked with the government Women's Bureau, the National Police Department, and the Transport Authority to place safety messaging and emergency hotlines on 1,500 public buses across 6 districts. A nationwide stand for zero tolerance of harassment in public places. Because the ability to use public transportation without fear of sexual harassment is a human right. This example shows what happens when grassroots interfaith advocates work together with formal government institutions to create real change. And our third example looks toward the next generation. In Plateau State, Nigeria, a URI cooperation circle called Rothman Capacity Building Initiative provides full scholarships to 40 children whose education was interrupted by incarceration or conflict in their families and in the community. This initiative helped to restore these children's basic right to education. One person, one system, one generation, different continents, different faiths, with one conviction running underneath all of it, that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is not a document to admire from a distance, but a set of instructions for how to treat our neighbors. I am because you are. I want to say one more thing because it matters especially to this audience. Every one of these efforts was carried forward by women and young people who are too often left out of rooms like this one. The inclusion of women, youth, and marginalized voices is not incidental to our work. It is central to it. The human rights movement that does not center youth and marginalized communities is not durable, and it is not truly reflective of the world we're trying to build. In this, URI and United for Human Rights and Youth for Human Rights International share more than the anniversary. We share a conviction that lasting change built from the ground up and carried forward by the very people it is meant to protect.
We at URI are grateful to be walking this path together with you. We look forward to the better world we will create together, a world where all individuals live in peace and dignity. And for everybody here who has said that expressed the desire for partnership, please seek us out. URI is a growing global movement and we want to be partners with you. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Dr. Kate.
Dr. Mary Shuttleworth, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, fellow panelists, and our youth delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you greetings from the Republic of Cameroon and from the great state of Maryland. It is a great honor to join you today to discuss a subject that is not only timely, but essential to the future of our world: human rights, education, leadership, and the way forward. When I reflect on this theme, one question comes to mind. What kind of leaders are we preparing today and for the future? Are we preparing leaders who simply know how to lead organizations, governments, or businesses? Or are we preparing leaders who understand the value of human dignity, who respect diversity, who defend justice, and who recognize that leadership begins with service? Or are we preparing leaders who understand the value of human dignity? Because without human rights, leadership can become power without purpose. And without leadership, human rights remains ideals on paper instead of realities in people's lives. The two are inseparable. In the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. Human rights education is about shaping character. It teaches us how to disagree without hatred, how to lead without discrimination, how to influence without oppression, how to recognize that every person deserves dignity, regardless of where they come from and what they believe, or the circumstances in which they were born. These are not just lessons for children, they are lessons for leaders. Over the last 20 years, I have worked to empower young women advocates through the Miss Africa USA pageant. Over the last 12 years, my team and I have worked with Youth for Human Rights International, the DC chapter, where we have established advocacy platforms and empowered young women to learn about human rights and take on leadership roles as ambassadors and educators in their communities. Our pageant queens and delegates are actively educating the community on human rights and promoting various causes for humanity. From the steps of Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., sharing booklets, engaging with the public, getting petitions signed, or at embassies, engaging in cultural diplomacy and raising awareness of human rights education. Earlier this year, I was in Cameroon with my team of volunteers, and and we were able to introduce human rights education in 4 different schools. For the very first time, students and teachers were learning about the Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, and they got to learn the very basic human rights. The students were very excited to become champions for human rights in their schools and to share the knowledge with their peers. We were able to share helpful tools and educational materials with teachers to be able to incorporate human rights education in their classrooms. During our visit in Limbe, Cameroon, our team was able to provide access to clean running water in all of these 4 schools and surrounding public communities. We were able to install taps within the school campus that had no running water, and access to clean running water has really brought life and human dignity to the community. When people understand their rights, they begin to discover their voices. And when they discover their voice, they also begin to understand their responsibility towards others. That is where leadership begins, not with authority, but with responsibility. The greatest leaders are not remembered because of the positions they held. They are remembered because they expanded opportunities, protected dignity, and inspired others to lead with integrity. Today, our world faces enormous challenges: conflict, displacement, gender inequality, and violence, increasing polarization. These challenges cannot be solved by laws alone. They require leaders who have been educated to value humanity above division. This is why investing in human rights education is one of the most important investments we can make in global peace and sustainable development. We must invest in leadership development. Knowledge alone is not enough. We must give young people opportunities to practice leadership through service, dialogue, volunteerism, mentorship, and civic engagement, which is what we do with the Miss Africa USA delegate. We must also ensure that women and girls are not simply included in leadership conversations, but are empowered to lead those conversations. Communities prosper when women have equal access to education, opportunity, and decision-making. Congratulations, that is our work, and we are very honored to be part of your organization.
Aloha, Joshua Cooper, Koinoa, I'm Joshua Cooper. It's an honor to be with you here today. Very excited to share with you some of the examples of what we organize the level of preparation to coordinate from the local level to the national, to the global. And what's so important as we look at the points as we imagine, we focus on imagination to implementation in our human rights education is providing. And so it begins with one's conscience, then of course the classroom, then we put the unity in the community, then at the capital level, and then at global civil society. And so I'm fortunate enough to teach at many universities. It's important to teach at university to show that that's where most of our moral imagination came away. There was a time when we found out who we are, what we believe, but most importantly, what we will do for our beliefs and to make the world a better place. And we're here now, and next month we start teaching at the University of Hawaii. But then later in that month, we actually go to Timor-Leste and Dili, and we help them prepare for the Universal Periodic periodic review. But it's these courses is where they're short courses that in a way it's an entire master's in just one moment where people go beyond education towards mobilization, towards realization. What's great about this conference is we understand view the HR, but then we have to actually undertake action at the United Nations to influence these international institutions. And if you look at this course we do in Hawaii, we actually made sure that for the first class on climate change, they go to the COP and actually attend and participate. And this is usually indigenous peoples. And in the 490 course, they actually go to the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous issues. The other idea, though, is shorter courses, but at the actual UN. And the Global Leadership Academy for Human Rights Advocacy, we take people from outside the UN, inside, and they actually focus on certain issues they care about at the UN Human Rights Council. The other institution that we created is called the Global Human Rights Fellows. And so there's two right here in the room as well. But it's about pursuing your passion and then making sure through your passion that you can pursue your profession based on what you really care about. And we see that happening there. It's also important, though, to have school at the Summer Academy in Hawaii with anyone, high school, university students, bringing everyone together. But we also realize with more authoritarian regimes, we have to really focus on the capital, and that's the next one. And the authoritarian regimes are at the Human Rights on the Hill, and we just finished 20 speakers on that. And beyond that, though, it's important to look at the Sustainable Development Goals. How many people have heard of the SDGs? Great. How many have participated at a voluntary national review? Less. We've got to take this education towards mobilization. Next year is Canada. We should partner to make sure that's a real good review and not just a courtesy review. The other one that's important is climate change. It's the most important issue for youth. And we're actually doing a thing called Talking Turkey. And that's preparing for the COP negotiations in Turkey. But it's to make sure the youth in Hawaii and around the Pacific can go there and participate. How many people have heard of the Universal Periodic Review, the UPR? Oh, great. That's why I love this group. That's why we keep coming. How many have participated in the UPR? One. Awesome. That's why we're working on the slides and having to partner with them. So we organize, when your government doesn't participate like ours, embarrassing moment in history, when you host the UN Charter Conference, and then 8 years later you need the charter to hold yourself accountable and not fall below the global floor. This is what we're doing. So in California, we work with students to actually do the UPR consultations with consulates, and also organize with embassies, and also with UN missions. Here's one thing we're doing now, is testify. And you can actually do this. So Bertie gave you some homework to write a one-pager, and I made it a little easier. Just one word. It says, I sit in, I speak out, and I stand up for what rights. You can come and take your picture, because everyone loves taking pictures here. Over by the scientific piece later. The last one, though, is we can't just do everything in here at the UN. We've got to go popular. So we have a TV show now, it's fast, called Free Union, and it's focusing on what's happening in human rights around the world. That's important there. The other thing, though, is every day you wake up and doom scrolling. So we came up with the calendar of consciousness, courage, creativity, and compassion. And every day it's what's happening in human rights history, whose shoulders are we standing on, what movie with meaning should you watch, what song with soul, I heard Boogie Down earlier by Queen Mother, and most importantly, what actions we can all take with this powerful quote. We're doing city work with municipal multilateral movements. So these students wrote a letter to the mayor, and the next thing we did with them was they organized and did activities and even marched on the Capitol to see what's possible. So city to city, we can do a lot together. And then we translate the UDHR into a level of the Hawaiian language. And then that's when the UDHR really became meaningful in Hawaii. So these are all our partners for human rights education in Hawaii. And I look forward to partnering with all of you. And one last one, just because Bishop is so important. He says, do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. And let's overwhelm the world together.
Distinguidos representantes de los Estados miembros, autoridades, delegaciones internacionales, queridos jóvenes, colegas y amigos. Es un verdadero honor dirigirme a ustedes en este escenario donde nos reúne un propósito que trasciende fronteras, culturas e ideologías, proteger la dignidad humana y construir un mundo donde la paz y los derechos humanos sean una realidad para todas las personas. Permítame comenzar con una pregunta. No una pregunta para responder con palabras, sino con la vida. ¿Cómo podemos esperar que una persona respete la dignidad de los demás si nunca aprendió a reconocer el valor de la suya? Esa pregunta cambió mi vida. La encontré en el rostro de niños marcados por la violencia, de jóvenes que nunca aprendieron a comprender sus emociones y de familias heridas por el conflicto. Entonces entendí que la verdadera defensa de los derechos humanos no comienza en un tribunal ni en la Declaración Internacional, comienza en el corazón de cada ser humano. Mientras buscaba respuestas, encontré una frase de Nelson Mandela que transformó mi manera de entender. Nadie nace odiando a otra persona por el color de su piel, su origen o su religión. Las personas aprenden a odiar y si pueden aprender a odiar, también se les puede enseñar. Aquellas palabras me llevaron a una reflexión aún más profunda. Dejé de preguntarme, ¿qué le pasa a esta persona? Y empecé a preguntarme, ¿qué le pasó para llegar hasta este punto? Eso cambió mi perspectiva y el modo de comprender al ser humano. Comprendí que detrás de la violencia muchas veces hay miedo, detrás de la agresión, dolor, y detrás de la indiferencia, una historia que nunca fue escuchada. Entonces entendí que si queríamos construir una cultura de paz, debíamos comenzar por educar el corazón. De esa convicción nació mi libro Emociones y posteriormente el modelo internacional Educar para la Paz, una propuesta que integra educación emocional, derechos humanos, ciudadanía global, pensamiento crítico y cultura de paz. Porque los derechos humanos no solo deben enseñarse, deben sentirse, vivirse y convertirse en la manera en que nos relacionamos con los demás. Hoy vemos cómo ese modelo fortalece escuelas, transforma familias y ayuda a construir comunidades más pacíficas. Cada niño que aprende a dialogar en lugar de agredir, cada docente que inspira con el ejemplo y cada joven que descubre el poder de la empatía nos demuestra que la paz no es una utopía, es una competencia que puede aprenderse. Yo quiero dirigirme especialmente a ustedes, jóvenes. Con frecuencia les dicen que son el futuro. Yo quiero decirles que ustedes son el presente. Las decisiones que tomen hoy escribirán la historia del mundo que heredarán las próximas generaciones. Quizá entre ustedes esté el próximo defensor de derechos humanos, la próxima líder social, la próxima ministra de Educación, un científico que transforme millones de vidas o un futuro representante de Naciones Unidas. Por eso quiero invitarlos a formar parte de Global Peace Maker, la red internacional de jóvenes de la Comisión Mundial para la Paz. No les estoy invitando simplemente a unirse a una organización, les estoy invitando a formar parte de una generación que decide reemplazar la indiferencia por el compromiso, la violencia por el diálogo y el miedo por la esperanza. Una generación que construya proyectos para sus comunidades, que promuevan los derechos humanos y de
Para terminar, quisiera ahora expresar mi lengua nativa. Cada uno de los 30 artículos de la Declaración Universal de Derechos Humanos se cobra vida cuando una persona decide escuchar antes de votar, ayudar antes de ignorar, dialogar antes de confrontar y respetar la dignidad de alguien que piensa diferente. Los derechos humanos dejan de ser palabras escritas, documentos, cuando se convierten en decisiones cotidianas. Queridos jóvenes, ustedes pertenecen a una generación que tiene una capacidad de comunicación que ninguna otra generación ha tenido en la historia. En pocos segundos pueden compartir una idea con miles de personas. Esa capacidad representa una enorme responsabilidad. Cada mensaje que publican, cada conversación que tienen y cada decisión que se toma puede contribuir a construir una estructura de respeto o una estructura de... No esperen a ser mayores para convertirse en defensores del respeto. Mi deseo es que cuando dentro de otros 25 años alguien celebre el aniversario del tiempo de Human Rights, pueda decir que la generación de Unidas activo decidió transformar el mundo no mediante la violencia, el odio o la indiferencia, sino mediante la educación, el respeto, el ejemplo y el servicio de los demás. Para terminar, permítame leer las palabras del señor Nueva que dice así: los derechos humanos deben convertirse en una realidad, no un sello de lista. Un aplauso para mí. Y un final aplauso para nuestra doctora Mariana, que está ahí siempre. Gracias.
Así concluimos la primera parte del día 2 de este Human Rights Summit Education for Peace. Nos vemos más tarde.